Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast for South America, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Looking back at the beginning of this month, we're looking at a map that shows satellite-derived precipitation from September the 1st through September the 8th, and we can see how heavy some of the rains have been from Buenos Aires province, getting through parts of Uruguay and then to Rio Grande do Sul. Overall, though, much of eastern Brazil has been quite dry, although we watched some storms roll through here. I'll show you those in a few moments that came right into this area today, coming out of Tocantins, Goiás, and then into parts of Mato Grosso do Sul. But we're still waiting on the return of the moisture here before planting starts in about a week. So this just kind of gives us an idea of where we're currently sitting on moisture, and we're waiting on 2 to 3 inches of rain to come in before this planting starts. Now, what we've noticed here over the last several weeks is that the jet stream momentum has been very high. And early in the season, as they're coming out of their winter and heading towards spring, we have to discuss a lot about what this jet stream momentum means. Later on, it's going to be all about the monsoonal flow. But you can see, looking at the upper level winds, how strong the westerlies have been, and quite highly amplified pattern. And what we're going to focus in on is what's happening right here, right now. And I can show you that maybe a little bit better by going down to the surface level winds. Now remember, we're south of the equator for those of you watching in the northern hemisphere, so this is a low pressure system here, and that is the position of the front. And so what we're going to see out of this is the moisture that comes out of this as it moves its way here along this part of Brazil, okay? So we saw it today on satellite. Let's just take you back before the sunset here, and there's that low. See it curling up here? And you can see the associated front with it that's actually draped all the way back into this area. And those storms I mentioned, look at them just blowing up here right about sunset. Scattered storms producing some locally heavy rain that came through that area. So we're going to see how that gets added up here when we look at our latest satellite data that we'll have for you on Monday. Okay, so from here though, let's just see where this low pressure system is going and what it means in terms of total accumulated precip. So we're going to flip over here to the European model and kind of play this forward. So here's our low late in the afternoon today, and as we go from here into the day on Friday, that low just slowly starts to move off coast, and the front to the north still have some scattered storms on it. But overall, through much of Brazil, as we go through the weekend, we're not talking about much precipitation. It's going to be the tail end of this front, possibly adding a little bit more here through Sunday. Now, outside of that, what I'm going to be watching is, are we going to be bringing in enough moisture coming out of the Amazon here to clip parts of Mato Grosso and increase rainfall there? Because as we go forward, that active storm track to the south brings more precipitation in through here early next week through parts of Rio Grande do Sul, out of Uruguay. But other than that, north of that area, we're not expecting to see too much more additional rainfall. So just stretching this out, into early next week, that's what we're going to be watching most carefully. Now you do notice as we get out here about a week from now, okay, that we're seeing increased chances of rainfall in through this area as that front just makes it about that far to the north. So when you add up the next week's worth of rainfall, this is what you end up getting. So we have the first system, and then the second system, and then a hard northern edge. So while this could bring rain to parts of Santa Catarina, into Sao Paulo, and also into Paraná, we're not seeing it extend into Mato Grosso do Sul. And just some scattered storms that are coming out of the Amazon here, clipping parts of Mato Grosso. Now, what we're again looking for is for this area to fill in here with potential rainfall amounts that are getting to be 2 to 3 inches of rain. And we're just not fully seeing that yet. So even though we're going to be 4 days into planting by the time this map is valid, I think a lot of folks are going to be still waiting on more moisture to return to this area before we really get aggressive with the planting. So the question is, does the week 2 pattern introduce that? And as we look out there into week 2, again, we don't see major deviations from normal in terms of precipitation over this area going all the way out to September the 23rd. It's wetter to the south, but that's as a consequence of those fronts going through, and we're wetter in the Amazon. But the question remains, are we going to return the moisture in through here as we finish September and get into the month of October? So before I answer that, let's go first and take a look at what the temperature holds. We continue to see above normal temperatures here over, in eastern Brazil, with cooler than normal temperatures surrounding that area. That's the next 5 days. And then day 5 through 10, that same pattern is kind of mimicked. So we're still cooler here to the north compared to normal for this time of year. Now, the bigger picture things moving forward come back to ocean temperatures. So let's get into that discussion. We've seen that the MJO wants to continue to favor this area, and it's resisting moving into the Central Pacific. And the reason why? The trade winds have picked back up again, and that's going to help continue to build this La Niña. Now, as long as we keep the best rising motion here and out of the Pacific, this isn't going to allow for a really strong monsoon to get going right away early in the season. It's not a complete stopper on the precipitation, but it's just not the best indicator for a strong monsoon to get going. And yes, this La Niña is expected to continue to strengthen through our fall time period. So what are we looking at now? Well, let's go out and look at that time period of September the 18th through October the 18th. And while we then move over to a drier pattern south, and yes, this is consistent with what I presented to you on Monday, we're now starting to see wetter conditions build into this area. If there's any hint at being drier, it's right in through this part of Mato Grosso. Yet we're still expecting plenty of rainfall in this area for planting to start. So using the models as guidance and looking here at the behavior of several of these factors, even if the models are overly wet, so even if they're too wet, we do expect, I think, closer to on-time planting, especially when you compare it to what we endured a year ago. All right. The driest conditions are now where the wettest conditions are today. That's what it looks like in the longer term forecast. Now, we want to add some new evidence we have for what this upcoming spring and summer is going to look like for South America. And to do that, I'm going to switch over to the European seasonal outlook. And I showed you this on Monday. October, November, December seems to be split, right? We tended to see drier conditions to the south and into Argentina and wetter to the north. As we stretch this out forward another month to November, December, January, and then December, January, February, that split seems to stay there. And this is a very telltale sign of a developing La Niña. That's what La Niñas tend to do, drier conditions farther to the south. Now, the supportive evidence of this just came in from the National Multi-Model Ensemble. This is a suite of models run in the United States. Now, I know it's a global view here, but you can see the same divide, right? What you've got here is wetter conditions to the north, drier to the south, and into Argentina. That's October, November, December. And if we just go ahead and look out here at the longer term, let's go back and grab global precipitation rate for what we call season 3. And what we get out there at that time, oops, I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong map there. I want to look at this one here, global precip rate. There we go. What you see is the same thing. We tend to be wetter to the north, and we have this drier signal farther to the south. So that's going to be the key thing to be watching as we progress through the springtime here in Brazil toward what will be summer. I'll keep an eye on it and keep reporting back to you, okay? Hope you all have a good rest of your week and weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.